We are in Hollywood, where magic happens.
Things went so well with Natalie and I in Michigan, she invited me to meet her in
Intimate
LA.
with each other for the first time, and it was rockin'. It was better than anything I've had for the last 4 years.
Can you close
that's
that
for sure.
too?
Sorry?
Can you close that?
I could.
Yeah. Well, you better.
All right.
The wild part is Gino walked into this trip acting like romance had already done the hard work. Like one good weekend and one intimate night had somehow pushed him into safer territory, but the second Bella showed up, the whole mood flipped, and that illusion started cracking fast. Welcome back. I'm Sabrine Rose, and before we get into this mess, subscribe and tell me in the comments one thing. If your family does not trust the person you are dating, do you see that as protection or a warning you are refusing to hear? Because this was not some small awkward meet and greet. This felt like a quiet ambush by reality. Gino looked ready for the next sweet chapter with Natalie, but Bella's energy said something else right away. No warmth, no easy smile, no signal that he was entering this woman's life on safe ground. And that is where the story stops being about romance and starts becoming a test of credibility. On the surface, Gino has reasons to feel hopeful. He and Natalie are traveling together again. They got physically closer. The vibe looked lighter. He is speaking like progress is happening. The problem is, progress only counts when both people experience it the same way. And there is already a question hanging over this whole trip. Is Gino reading Closeness correctly, or is he grading this relationship based on what he wants it to mean? Then Bella steps in. And suddenly, all the soft focus disappears. Her presence brings judgment into the room before Gino even has time to settle in. That matters because family rarely reacts to the version of you that you are trying to sell. Family reacts to the version they think they already know. So now we have 5 problems sitting in the same car park. Gino's confidence, Natalie's true feelings, Bella's distrust, the shadow of Gino's past behavior, and one ugly possibility. This trip looked romantic. Right up until reality pulled up in the parking lot. Gino walks into this part of the story with the kind of confidence men usually borrow when they are trying to convince themselves first and everyone else second. Because the way he talks about this weekend, you would think one intimate night settled every question hanging over this relationship and stamped the whole thing with approval. He sounds upbeat, loose, almost proud, like physical closeness has confirmed that whatever chaos came before is now behind them, and for a second, Natalie seems to support that mood because her energy is lighter, the trip feels warmer, and the setup looks like the kind of romantic reset people love, to mistake for proof. Then the floor starts moving under that version of events, because Gino talks about intimacy like it was some huge breakthrough. Something electric, something strong enough to carry the relationship forward on its own, but Natalie's reaction lands in a much flatter place. She does not frame it like a life-changing moment. She does not sound swept up. She sounds polite, measured, and a little underwhelmed. That gap matters more than the intimacy itself, because this is no longer about whether attraction exists. Attraction is there. The issue is meaning. He thinks the moment proved progress. She treats it like one moment that still left questions hanging in the air. That is where the story starts getting uncomfortable, because Gino's confidence stops sounding romantic and starts sounding defensive. Is he feeling chosen, or is he grading himself on a curve because he needs this to count for more than it did? Is he reading Natalie clearly, or is he turning a mixed signal into a victory speech because the alternative would hit his ego a lot harder? And that is why the sweetness of the setup never feels fully secure. The trip looks cute on the surface, the chemistry looks alive enough to keep hope moving, and Gino keeps leaning into that hope like the road ahead is finally opening up. Then Natalie arrives, Bella steps out with her, and the private bubble bursts right there in front of him before he even has time to pretend it was solid. The first meeting with Bella does not feel awkward in a cute reality TV way. It feels cold in a way that tells you the room already has a history before anyone says much at all. Gino shows up expecting at least basic warmth, or at minimum some polite space to make a decent first impression. But Bella does not give him that runway. Her energy is guarded from the start, and that changes the entire tone in seconds, because now this is not a boyfriend arriving into a hopeful family moment. This is a man walking into someone else's doubt. And then comes that car door exchange, which on the surface looks small enough to brush off. One of those petty little moments people argue about later because nobody wants to admit the whole vibe was bad from the beginning, but underneath it, there is something much uglier doing the work. First impressions do not create history, they expose it. Bella is not reacting to Gino like he is a stranger who deserves a blank slate. She is reacting to him like she already knows enough or thinks she does to keep him at arm's length. That is why reducing her to the rude daughter misses the point. Bella is not random hostility dropped into the story for drama. She is the consequence of everything Gino brought into this moment before the weekend even started. She knows how her mother has been hurt. She knows how he has looked on television. She knows enough to be suspicious, and suspicion tends to show up with an attitude long before it shows up with a speech. Still, to be fair, Bella is protective, not soft. Gino is caught off guard, not fully prepared. Natalie is trapped in the middle, trying to manage a meeting that already feels tenser than she hoped. So the question becomes who crossed the line first? Bella with the coldness, or Gino by showing up expecting comfort he had not earned? Because that is the bigger shift in this scene. Gino wanted welcome, and Bella offered audit. Bella's resistance does not land like random attitude once you sit with the scene for a second, because people do not usually come in that guarded unless something was already said, shown, or felt before the cameras caught the handshake. She is not meeting Gino as some neutral new guy who gets the luxury of being judged only on today. She is meeting him as the man connected to her mother's past embarrassment, past disappointment, and all the messy public baggage that came with it. By the time he steps into that space, his reputation has already walked in ahead of him, found a seat, and made things uncomfortable. That is what makes this more interesting than a simple rude daughter storyline. Bella is carrying social memory. She has receipts in the emotional sense even if she is not reading them out loud one by one. She has seen enough or heard enough to decide that Gino does not deserve easy warmth on arrival. And honestly, this is where a lot of men want a fresh start, like it is a coupon code. New weekend, new city, new vibe, same unpaid invoice. Life does not work like that. You do not get to skip the part where people remember how you handled someone they love. Still, fairness matters here. Bella is not automatically right in every tone choice she makes, and Gino is not wrong for hoping he would at least get a civil opening. That is why the tension works. Bella looks protective, but there is also a chance some of this is punishment. Gino looks caught off guard, but there is also a reason he walked into that room already owing trust. Both things can be true, and that is why the scene holds. Natalie ends up in the worst seat in the house because she is trying to keep the peace between the man she wants to move forward with and the daughter whose judgment she cannot casually dismiss. She is smiling, smoothing, hoping the mood settles, but the harder question is hanging right under all of it. Is Natalie's hope stronger than her caution? Natalie is doing something more careful than simple romance here. And that is why her part in this story matters more than people rushing to label her hopeful or foolish want to admit. Because she does not read like a woman who is fully sold, fully safe, or fully done asking questions. She reads like a woman testing fit in real time. Her daughter matters. Her peace matters. Her chemistry with Gino matters too. And the tension comes from the fact that those three things are not moving in perfect alignment. She wants to enjoy him. You can see that. She wants this trip to feel lighter than the past. She wants some proof that whatever went wrong before does not have to control every new moment. But wanting relief is not the same as giving full trust, and the script keeps showing that she is still measuring him against the life she already has, not the fantasy he wishes they were stepping into. Bella is part of that life. Her own emotional safety is part of that life, so is the attraction she still feels. Natalie is not picking one lane. She is trying to hold all three without letting any one of them blow up the others. That is why the strip club sequence works as such a clever tonal switch. On the surface, it is playful, bold, almost funny. Natalie looks relaxed enough to flip the mood and push Gino into a more daring kind of date energy. The scene gives the relationship a pulse again. It makes them look loose, flirty, and alive. For a moment, the tension backs off and the trip starts breathing again. But even there, the awkward truth stays in the room. If Natalie has to create a setting to loosen him up, then ease is still not natural between them. If she needs to help manufacture comfort, then comfort has not settled in on its own. So the fun does not erase the issue. It only dresses it better. And that is the trap in scenes like this. Playful energy can make pressure look smaller, but it does not make pressure disappear. The intimacy gap is where this story stops looking cute and starts looking dangerous. Because Gino talks about that night like it settled something major. Like one physical step forward proved the relationship is warming up in all the ways he wants, and once he starts speaking with that much confidence, you can feel him building a version of the weekend that sounds smoother than the truth. Natalie does not fully match that energy. She does not describe the moment like a turning point. She does not sound swept away. She sounds calm, polite, and far less transformed by it, and that difference carries more weight than the act itself, because this is not only about chemistry. This is about interpretation. Gino hears closeness and starts translating it into progress. Natalie experiences the same closeness and still sounds like she is gathering data. That is a huge difference. One person feels confirmed, the other still feels undecided. And once those two emotional speeds stop matching, the relationship starts moving on uneven ground. Gino is not only enjoying the moment, he is grading it like proof. Natalie is treating it like one moment inside a much larger test. To be fair, shyness is not some grand crime. Nerves are human. Awkwardness in the bedroom does not automatically mean disaster, and not every underwhelming first experience turns into a long-term problem. Sometimes people need time, comfort, and repetition before things click. That part deserves fairness. Still, the issue is not that Gino was shy. The issue is how quickly he promotes a mixed review into a win. That is where overconfidence turns messy. Because once someone starts reading comfort as commitment, they stop noticing the warning signs sitting right in front of them. Natalie's not rejecting him, but she is not backing his fantasy either. She sounds warmer than before, not fully convinced. And if Gino is already misreading the bedroom, then the harder question starts creeping in right away. What else is he misreading? This is where the story stops behaving like a simple couple storyline and starts turning into 3 linked tests running at the same time, and that is why the pressure gets heavier here even if nobody is screaming yet. Gino is not only trying to be a decent boyfriend, he is trying to look trustworthy in front of a woman who still remembers the past, and he is trying to feel acceptable in front of the daughter who already seems to doubt him. That is a rough setup, because failing one test starts contaminating the others. You do not get to be shaky with the family and still pretend the romance is untouched. Life is rude like that. Bella makes this harder because she feels like the gatekeeper in the moment. Her energy shapes the room. Her coldness changes the temperature. Her reactions tell Gino he is not entering some warm little love bubble where he gets graded on effort alone. He is entering a space where history counts. Still, Bella is not the one holding the final decision. Natalie is. That matters because the daughter can block comfort, but the mother decides access. So the real tension is not only whether Bella approves, the real tension is whether Bella's doubt starts sounding smarter and smarter to Natalie the longer this goes on. That is why the mood keeps swinging in such an uncomfortable way. One minute, Gino is trying to act normal, trying to smile, trying to steady himself like this is still a standard relationship step. The next minute, the whole room feels like it is quietly leaning away from him. It is almost funny in a painful way, because he wants to act like a man settling in, while the atmosphere keeps treating him like a suspect at a family barbecue who brought no dish and too much confidence. And Natalie sits right in the center of all this, balancing chemistry against memory, hope against caution, attraction against pattern. She is not choosing between two men. She is choosing between a good feeling and a hard question. Does she want romance? Or proof? At this point, the easiest version of the story is also the laziest one. Bella is rude, Gino is trying. End of argument. But that reading is too clean for what is sitting underneath this mess, and the same goes for the opposite version where Gino deserves every ounce of coldness, and Bella is simply delivering justice on behalf of her mother. That sounds satisfying for 5 seconds, then it starts falling apart, because both people have something real on their side. A daughter protecting her mother is not automatically unfair. If Bella has watched Natalie get embarrassed, disappointed, or dragged through chaos before, then her skepticism is not random attitude. It is memory with teeth. She is not responding to a man in a vacuum. She is responding to a pattern she thinks she recognizes. That deserves weight. At the same time, a man trying to move forward is not automatically fake. Not every awkward moment means manipulation. Not every hopeful comment means performance. Gino does seem to want progress. He does seem to want connection. He does not come across like someone who hates Natalie or wants to sabotage the weekend. So fairness matters there too. The problem is that good intentions stop carrying much value when they arrive without enough repair behind them. Effort without repair is thin. Attraction without trust is thin. Progress without accountability is thin. That is where this story gets harder than a basic Team Bella or Team Gino argument. Because both sides have logic, but neither side has enough strength to calm the whole situation. Bella has reason to doubt. Gino has reason to hope. Natalie is standing between those two forces, trying to figure out whether hope has earned the right to survive doubt. And that is the deeper moral tension running through all of this. A cute weekend can help the mood. A playful moment can soften the edge. A little chemistry can make people want to believe. But none of those things erase what sits underneath. All roads keep leading back to the same fear. Public chemistry cannot erase private doubt. By now, the shape of the conflict is clear. And the reason it keeps pulling in three directions is because all three of them want something reasonable. But those reasonable motives still collide the second they share the same space. Gino wants the rewards of trust before he has fully repaired the damage that made trust fragile in the first place. Natalie wants hope, but she does not want to hand over her peace too early and end up paying for optimism twice. Bella wants safety for her mother before she offers softness to the man standing in front of her. None of those motives are absurd. All of them make sense. That is why this story works. It also explains why every earlier moment keeps echoing forward. The cold greeting was not only awkward, it was a warning. The intimacy mismatch was not only embarrassing, it exposed how differently Gino and Natalie are reading the same relationship. The strip club did not fix the tension. It briefly covered it with playful energy. And all of it is still hanging under the shadow of the old humiliation Natalie has already lived through. Because people do not forget pain on a new weekend simply because the hotel lighting is better. That is the harder truth settling in now. Gino is trying to move forward. Natalie is trying not to lose herself while doing it. Bella is trying to stop her mother from getting hurt again. Those goals do not line up neatly, and that is why this does not land like a clean romance or a clean rejection. It lands like a verdict still forming, not a final breakup, not some fairy tale reunion, something rougher than both. One good weekend is not enough. So the final answer is not that this weekend meant nothing, because it did. The relationship moved forward on the surface. The chemistry was there. The mood did soften. Natalie was open enough to keep trying, and Gino got more access than a man gets when a woman has fully checked out. That part is real. The problem is that movement is not the same as security, and this story never lets us confuse those two things for long. The shock at the start hits harder now because Bella did not walk in and destroy some perfect romantic moment. She exposed how unfinished it was. She forced the relationship out of its private fantasy and into public evaluation. That is why her presence changed everything. She made the gap visible. Gino was moving like intimacy had already earned him trust. Natalie was moving like trust still needed proof. Bella showed up and made sure nobody could hide from that mismatch. And that is why nobody fully wins this chapter. Natalie did not reject Gino, but she did not hand him safety either. She kept him under review. Gino did not fully fail, because he still held on to some progress and some connection. But he also did not earn the kind of comfort he seemed to expect. He got closer, but not clear. That leaves the relationship in the most dangerous place of all. The place where hope still exists, attraction still exists, and doubt still runs the room. One good weekend pushed them forward, but trust is still behind, family memory is still active, and the next test will show whether this was the start of repair or the calm before Natalie asks the one question Gino may not be ready to answer.